It's her, the girl that gave me her phone to call the driver when I was robbed on the street.
In the heart of Ajegunle, a sprawling slum in Lagos, Nigeria, where the air was thick with the scent of fried plantains and the distant hum of generators, lived a young woman named Ezinne. With her voluptuous curves that turned heads wherever she went, she navigated the muddy paths of her neighborhood with a quiet grace that belied her dire circumstances. Poverty clung to her like the dampness after a tropical rain, her wooden shack a fragile sanctuary amid the chaos of overcrowded tenements and blaring Afrobeat music from nearby bars. Each morning, as the first rays of dawn pierced the cracks in her walls, Ezinne would rise before the roosters crowed, her body aching from the previous day's labors. She would kneel on her threadbare mat, whispering fervent prayers to a God she hoped was listening, begging for strength to endure another day in the trenches. Her routine was a monotonous cycle of survival, washing her face with water fetched from a communal tap, slipping into her faded waitress uniform that hugged her ample figure a bit too tightly, and stepping out into the bustling streets where hawkers shouted their wares and Okada motorcycles zipped perilously close. The weight of her dreams of escaping this life, of finding love and security, pressed heavily on her shoulders. Yet she pushed forward, her spirit unbroken amidst the squalor. As Ezinne made her way to the modest eatery where she walked, the sun climbing higher and casting long shadows over the potholed roads, she often reflected on her past. Often at a young age, she had been raised by a distant aunt who saw her more as a burden than family, forcing her into menial jobs from childhood. Now, in her mid-20s, her curves, which she viewed as both a blessing and a curse, attracted unwanted attention from men who mistook her kindness for invitation. But Ezinne was resolute. She prayed not just for sustenance, but for protection from the predators lurking in the shadows of Ajegunle. Arriving at work, she would plaster on a smile, serving plates of jollof rice and pounded yam to patrons who ranged from weary laborers to occasional middle-class visitors slumming it for authentic street food. The insults from her boss, a lecherous man named Chifokoru, who had once proposed her and been rebuffed, added salt to her wounds. He would back orders, demean her in front of customers, and dock her pay for imagined slights, all while leering at her figure. Yet Ezinne endured, her faith a flickering light in the darkness, whispering to herself that one day her perseverance would be rewarded. The evenings brought little respite for Ezinne as she trudged back to her shack under the flickering streetlights that barely pierced the night. The sounds of Lagos at dusk, children laughing, vendors closing up, and the occasional gunfire in the distance formed the soundtrack to her solitude. Inside her humble abode, constructed from scavenged wood and corrugated iron, she would prepare a simple meal of garri and soup, often sharing with neighbors who were equally destitute. Her curves, which she covered modestly to avoid gossip, were a source of quiet pride. They reminded her of her mother's beauty, a legacy she carried with dignity. But poverty gnawed at her, the constant hunger pangs a reminder of her fragility. She would pray again before bed, thanking God for the day's mercies and pleading for a miracle to lift her from this cycle. Little did she know the threads of fate were already weaving a tapestry of intrigue, where acts of kindness would intersect with the lives of the wealthy, pulling her into a world of suspense and unexpected twists that would forever alter her destiny. On particularly grueling days, when the heat of the Lagos sun beat down mercilessly and the air shimmered with humidity, Ezinne found solace in small acts of defiance against her circumstances. She would hum gospel tunes while scrubbing tables at the eatery, her voice a melodic counterpoint to the clatter of dishes and the rude demands of customers. Her boss's maltreatment escalated after her refusal of his advances. He assigned her the dirtiest tasks, like cleaning the grease-laden kitchen floors on her hands and knees, all while making snide remarks about her wasted beauty in the slums. Yet Ezinne's resolve hardened like the calluses on her feet from walking miles each day. She dreamed of a life beyond Ajegunle, perhaps owning her own restaurant where she could serve with pride, free from harassment. As she lay on her mat at night, staring at the leaking roof, she envisioned a Prince Charming who would see beyond her curves to the depth of her soul. These fantasies fueled her, but reality intruded with the dawn, pulling her back into the grind. Unbeknownst to her, the universe was conspiring, setting the stage for encounters that would introduce suspenseful elements into her mundane existence, transforming her story into one of riveting drama and profound change. One fateful morning, As Ezinne stepped out into the dim light of pre-dawn Ajegunle, the usual cacophony of the neighborhood was pierced by distant shouts and the revving of an engine. Her heart raced as she quickened her pace along the narrow alleyways, her curvaceous silhouette casting elongated shadows on the graffiti-covered walls. She had always been cautious in these parts, where crime lurked like a predator in the underbrush, but today felt different. A palpable tension hung in the air, thick as the morning mist rolling off the nearby lagoon. As she turned a corner onto a busier street, her eyes widened in horror at the scene unfolding. A well-dressed man was being accosted by 3 masked assailants, their knives glinting under the sparse street lamps. The man struggled valiantly, his expensive suit tearing as he fought back, but the robbers overpowered him, snatching his keys and forcing him to the ground. Ezinne ducked behind a stack of discarded crates, her breath shallow and rapid, praying silently for the violence to end without her being noticed. The robbers piled into the man's sleek sedan, tires screeching as they sped away into the fading night, leaving the victim sprawled on the pavement, dazed and disheveled. Emerging tentatively from her hiding spot once the danger had passed, Ezinne's compassionate nature overrode her fear. She approached the man cautiously, her ample curves swaying with each step, drawing his bleary gaze upward. He was handsome, with sharp features and an air of authority that suggested he was no ordinary resident of these trenches. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly from the adrenaline. The man, dusting himself off, looked up at her with gratitude mingled with urgency. "My phone, they took everything. Please, miss, may I borrow yours, just for a quick call?" Ezinne hesitated, her mind flashing to stories of scams and further danger. After all, in Ajegunle, trust was a luxury few could afford. But something in his eyes, desperation laced with sincerity, compelled her to hand over her battered Nokia, its screen cracked from years of use. He dialed swiftly, speaking in clipped tones to someone on the other end, arranging for a driver to bring another vehicle. As he hung up and returned the phone, he thanked her profusely, his hand brushing hers in a moment that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Little did she know, this brief encounter was the first thread in a web of intrigue that would soon entangle her life. Waiting with the man for his ride, Ezinne felt a mix of anxiety and curiosity bubbling within her. The street was slowly coming to life, with early risers peeking from their windows, whispering about the robbery. The man introduced himself as Kelechi, a businessman from the upscale Lekki district, explaining he had been visiting an associate in the area when misfortune struck. His story intrigued her. How did someone from such affluence end up in the clutches of Ajegunle's underbelly? As they conversed lightly, dodging deeper questions, a luxurious SUV pulled up, its tinted windows reflecting the first hint of sunrise. Kelechi's driver stepped out, concern etched on his face, and helped his boss inside. Before departing, Kelechi pressed a small wad of naira in Ezinne's hand as a token of thanks, insisting she take it despite her protests. She watched the vehicle disappear down the road, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if the robbers returned? What if this man was involved in something shady? The suspense gnawed at her as she continued to work, the incident replaying in her thoughts like a thriller novel she couldn't put down. Arriving at the eatery later than usual, Ezinne's boss immediately berated her for her tardiness, his eyes lingering inappropriately on her curves as he hurled insults. "Lazy girl, always causing trouble," he snarled, oblivious to the trauma she had just witnessed. But Ezinne pushed through, serving customers with her trademark smile, though her mind wandered back to Kelechi. Was he safe? Would their paths cross again? The day dragged on, filled with the clatter of plates and the sizzle of frying akara, but an undercurrent of suspense lingered. That night, as she prayed in her shack, she included Kelechi in her supplications, unaware that this act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events fraught with twists, where the lines between coincidence and destiny would blur in the most captivating ways. Days blurred into one another for Ezinne, her routine a relentless march through the grimy streets of Ajegunle to the eatery, where the aroma of spicy stews mingled with the sweat of overworked staff. One afternoon, amidst the lunch rush, a distinguished gentleman in a tailored suit dined alone, savoring his meal with an air of quiet sophistication that stood out against the humble backdrop. His presence intrigued the other waitresses, who whispered about his possible wealth, but Ezinne served him diligently, her curves accentuated by the tight uniform as she balanced trays with practiced ease. As he finished and left without a word, tipping generously, she cleared his cable only to discover a sleek leather wallet tucked beneath a napkin. Her heart skipped a beat. Opening it revealed stacks of crisp naira notes and what appeared to be important documents, but no identification, no name, no photo, nothing to trace the owner. Panic set in. Should she turn it into her boss, who might pocket it, or try to find the man herself? The suspense built as she pocketed it temporarily, her mind racing with ethical dilemmas in a place where honesty was often punished. That evening, back in her wooden shack, Ezinne examined the wallet under the dim light of her kerosene lamp, the flickering flame casting eerie shadows on the walls. The documents inside were cryptic, land deeds it seemed, stamped with official seals that hinted at immense value. She pondered the owner's desperation. Losing this could ruin lives. Determined to do the right thing, she ventured out the next day during her break, asking around the eatery or nearby shops if anyone recognized the description of the man. But Lagos was a city of millions, and her inquiries yielded nothing but suspicious glances. Her boss, catching wind of her distractions, intensified his harassment, assigning her extra shifts and mocking her detective fantasies. Ezinne's curves, once a source of quiet confidence, now felt like a target for his leers, adding layers of personal intrigue to her quest. Would the owner return, or had she unwittingly invited danger by holding on to such valuables?
As weeks passed without leads, Ezinne's daily life became a tightrope of suspense, balancing her waitress duties with secret attempts to trace the wallet's origins. She visited local police stations, but the officers dismissed her, suggesting she keep the money for herself. Temptation whispered in her ear during lean times when her shack's roof leaked during heavy rains, but her faith held firm. One night, as thunder rumbled outside, she prayed over the wallet, asking for guidance. Unbeknownst to her, the man she sought was part of a larger narrative, his loss a puzzle piece in a story of family fortunes and hidden connections that would soon explode into her world with twists she could never anticipate. The pressure mounted as Ezinne's boss grew more vindictive, his rejected advances fueling a campaign of sabotage, spilled drinks blamed on her, reduced tips, and constant verbal abuse that chipped away at her spirit. Yet, she clung to the wallet like a talisman, its mystery fueling her imagination during long shifts. What if it belonged to a criminal or a philanthropist? The intrigue kept her hooked, turning her mundane existence into a personal thriller. Little did she know, the resolution was approaching, wrapped in the guise of an elderly woman and a luxurious car, promising suspenseful revelations that would upend her life.
Ezinne's days at the eatery had become a battlefield, where her boss's resentment manifested in endless torments designed to break her will. Chief Okoro, a burly man with a perpetual scowl, had once cornered her in the storage room, professing his love in crude terms that focused obsessively on her curves. Her firm rejection had ignited a vendetta. Now he assigned her the graveyard shifts, forcing her to clean up long after closing, her voluptuous figure aching from hours on her feet. Customers, sensing the tension, sometimes intervened with kind words, but most ignored the drama, focused on their meals. Ezinne prayed each morning for resilience, her faith a shield against the insults like "useless girl" and "who do you think you are" that rained down daily. The wallet incident only exacerbated things, as Okoro accused her of theft without proof, docking her pay and threatening to fire her. Suspense simmered in the air. Would he discover the wallet in her bag? Her routine, once predictable, now felt like navigating a minefield, each interaction laced with potential disaster. Amidst the harassment, Ezinne found fleeting moments of joy in serving grateful patrons, their smiles a balm for her wounded pride. One evening, as rain pounded the eatery's tin roof, a group of rowdy men made lewd comments about her body, and Okoro laughed along instead of defending her. Tears stung her eyes as she retreated to the kitchen, questioning why her kindness seemed to invite only pain. But deep down, her spirit rebelled. She dreamed of quitting, of finding a place where her curves weren't objectified but celebrated. The intrigue of the forgotten wallet provided a distraction, a secret quest that infused her days with purpose. As she wiped down tables, her mind wandered to possible owners, crafting elaborate scenarios of reunion and reward that kept her hooked despite the drudgery. The climax of her workplace woes came during a busy weekend rush when Okoro deliberately tripped her, sending a tray of food crashing to the floor. Laughter erupted from the staff, but Ezinne rose with dignity, her curves unbowed, refusing to let him see her break. That night, alone in her shack, she cried out her frustrations to God, pleading for a sign. Unbeknownst to her, relief was on the horizon, disguised in an act of kindness toward an old woman, promising twists that would expose the interconnectedness of her encounters and propel her into a world of wealth and wonder. Okoro's malice escalated to sabotage, tampering with her orders to make her look incompetent, all while whispering threats of exposure if she didn't reconsider his advances. Ezinne's resilience shone through, her prayers intensifying as she navigated this suspenseful ordeal. The wallet remained her hidden anchor, a symbol of potential change. As tensions peaked, she contemplated leaving, but fate intervened, weaving her story with elements of intrigue that would soon reveal themselves in dramatic fashion. On a sweltering afternoon, as Ezinne paused at a chaotic intersection in Ajegunle, the blaring horns and weaving buses creating a symphony of urban frenzy, an elderly woman approached her with a plea. Dressed in elegant attire that screamed affluence, a flowing Ankara gown adorned with gold jewelry, she seemed utterly out of place amid the dust and desperation. "My dear, could you help an old soul cross this mad road?" the woman asked, her voice refined yet wary. Ezinne, her curves glistening with sweat under her uniform, was stunned. What was someone so wealthy doing in the trenches? Suspicion flickered. Could this be a setup, a scam in disguise? But compassion won out, and she linked arms with the woman, guiding her through the perilous traffic, dodging motorcycles and hawkers with nimble steps. The woman's grip was firm, her perfume a luxurious contrast to the street's odors, heightening the intrigue. As they reached the other side, Ezinne's curiosity piqued. Who was this stranger, and why here? Escorting the woman further to ensure her safety, Ezinne learned snippets of her story. She was visiting a charity project in the area, but had gotten separated from her driver. The tale sounded plausible, yet an undercurrent of mystery lingered, as if the woman harbored secrets. Arriving at a gleaming Rolls-Royce parked incongruously on a side street, the driver emerged, a tall man with familiar features that Ezinne couldn't place immediately. Recognition dawned as he thanked her profusely. He was the rich man from the eatery. Her hand flew to her bag, retrieving the wallet with trembling fingers. "Is this yours?" she asked, her voice laced with suspense. His eyes widened in astonishment, joy flooding his face as he confirmed it, pulling her into an exuberant hug that left her breathless. Apologies tumbled from his lips, and he insisted on taking her number, promising to repay her kindness. As the Rolls-Royce purred away, leaving Ezinne in the dust, she wondered if this was the twist she'd been praying for. That night, as Ezinne cooked a meager meal over her charcoal stove in the wooden shack, the phone rang, shattering the quiet. It was him. Ademola. He introduced himself properly, thanking her again for the wallet. He revealed the documents inside were deeds to billions in Nigerian land, a fortune that could have been lost forever. Their conversation stretched for hours, delving into life philosophies, dreams, and shared laughs, building an unexpected connection. Suspense built with each word. Was this genuine or a ploy? Ezinne's heart raced, her curves forgotten in the thrill of this budding intrigue. Daily calls followed, each one deepening the bond, filled with stories of his business empire and her humble struggles. Ademola's voice became a lifeline, infusing her routine with anticipation. Yet, doubts crept in. Was he too good to be true? The suspense kept her engaged, turning her life into a captivating narrative of potential romance and hidden depths. When Ademola suggested a date, Ezinne's hesitation was palpable, her poverty a barrier she couldn't ignore. "I don't have anything nice to wear," she confessed, her voice small over the phone. But he persisted gently, promising to handle it. The next day, a Mercedes G-Wagon roared into her compound, shocking neighbors who gawked from their doorways. Ademola stepped out, handsome and assured, ushering her inside amid whispers of envy. They drove to upscale boutiques in Victoria Island, where he lavished her with dresses that accentuated her curves, shoes, jewelry,
items worth more than her yearly wage. Suspense tinged the outing. Was this a fairy tale, or would reality crash in? Ezinne's heart fluttered with each purchase, her prayers answered in extravagant form. The date the following evening was magical, a candlelit dinner at a seaside restaurant, waves crashing as they shared stories. Ademola's charm disarmed her, his tales of global travels contrasting her Ajegunle life. Laughter flowed, but an undercurrent of intrigue remained. What secrets did he hold? Dropping her off, he kissed her cheek, leaving her breathless. Entering her shack, however, horror struck. The door ajar, belongings ransacked, all new items stolen. Tears streamed as she called him, her voice breaking with despair.
Ademola returned swiftly, his concern palpable as she bundled her into the G-Wagon, whisking her to his Lekki mansion. The opulent gate swung open to reveal marble floors, chandeliers, and sprawling gardens, a world apart from her shack. As they entered, his brother burst in, exclaiming, "It's her, the girl who lent me her phone after the robbery." Suspense peaked. How were they connected? The mother emerged, her face lighting up in recognition, the elderly woman from the crossing. Concern creased her brow as Ademola explained the theft. They enveloped Ezinne in warmth, leading her to a lavish guest room, assuring her safety. The twists unfolded, revealing a family unknowingly aided by her kindness thrice over.
In the mansion's grandeur, Ezinne awoke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains, her curves nestled in plush bedding that felt like a dream. The previous night's revelations replayed. Ademola's brother was Kelechi, the robbery victim. His mother, the elderly woman she helped. The family, bound by her unrelated acts of kindness, now embraced her as one of their own. Breakfast was a feast of exotic fruits and pastries, served on fine china, as they shared stories laced with suspense, how each encounter had been coincidental yet fateful. Ademola's eyes sparkled with affection, hinting at deeper feelings, while Ezinne marveled at the intrigue of it all. But shadows lingered. Who had burgled her home? Was it random or targeted? The family outing that day was a whirlwind of shopping in high-end malls, replacing stolen items and more. Ezinne protested the extravagance, but they insisted, piling on designer clothes, gadgets, and jewelry that accentuated her beauty. Kelechi joked about her superhero status, while the mother, Madame Gozi, shared wisdom on life's twists. Suspense built as Ademola pulled her aside, confessing his growing love, his voice trembling with emotion. Ezinne's heart raced. Could she trust this whirlwind romance?
Returning to the mansion, Ezinne hugged Ademola tightly, tears of gratitude flowing. "You've changed my life," she whispered. He countered, "No, you saved ours. Wallet, phone, safe crossing. We were the random people, but fate made us family." Their embrace deepened, suspense giving way to passion's promise. Yet, whispers of doubt crept in. Ezinne wondered if her past poverty would haunt this new chapter. The family's unity, forged in intrigue, assured her otherwise, setting the stage for a future filled with over-the-top twists.
As days turned to weeks in the mansion, Ezinne integrated into the family's rhythm, her curves now clad in elegance that matched her inner strength. Ademola proposed partnership in his business, valuing her insight from the trenches. Suspense from her old life faded, replaced by captivating plans for charity work in Ajegunle. But a twist emerged. Investigations revealed her boss, Okoro, orchestrated the burglary out of spite. Confronted, he begged forgiveness, but justice prevailed, his eatery shuttered. Family bonds deepened with lavish gatherings, where Ezinne's story inspired all. Ademola's proposal under starlit skies was a pinnacle of romance, his ring symbolizing their intertwined fates. Tears flowed as she accepted, the intrigue of their meetings now a cherished legend. Life blossomed. Ezinne opened a foundation aiding the poor, her curves a symbol of empowered beauty. Twists continued, discovering hidden talents, global travels, and overcoming jealous rivals. Their love story, over the top in its drama, hooked everyone. In reflection, Ezinne prayed thanks for the journey from poverty to prosperity, her tale a testament to kindness's rewards. The end? Merely a beginning, filled with endless suspense and joy.
Subscribe, like, comment, share.